For all the shuhada, and in particular tonight a member of our audience has unfortunately lost their brother-in-law in Syria, a recent shaheed in the unfortunate situation in Syria and the current government, if you can call it that. The Shia is still under stress, under oppression. May Allah make it easy for them, and may Allah bless the soul of this recently deceased shaheed. With the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين نحمده ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه وخاتم رسله النبي المؤيد والرسول الأمجد أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل الساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. وهب لنا رأفته ورحمته ودعاءه وخيره ببركة الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. Can you put the volume up a little bit? Yeah. In each generation, the Ahlulbayt had an important duty, a God-given duty of continuing the legacy of Rasulullah. The legacy of Rasulullah entailed, firstly, the preservation of the religion, the explanation of the Holy Quran, and the implementation of its teachings. Yes? Rasulullah is the messenger for the book. The book is to be explained, to be taught, to be understood, to be implemented. Once Rasulullah passes away, it is the duty of the Imam to carry this obligation and responsibility because they are the most fit individuals to do this. They were the recipient of the prophetic knowledge in its authentic form, and when it was needed, Allah would sometimes inspire them with knowledge, not revelation, but inspired knowledge, to fill in the gaps when required. So the Ahlul Bayt, like the hadith of Rasulullah, hadith of Thaqlain or Thaqlain, has professed the Ahlul Bayt are tied to the Holy Quran. Their legacy, their life, anything they do and everything they do in every day of their life is effectively trying to explain a page of the Quran. Every page of the days of the lives of the Ahlul Bayt is an attempt to revive and preserve and explain every page of the Holy Quran. This is who the Ahlul Bayt are. Continue that into their companions, how much they recommended their companions to have a relationship with the Quran, to read the Quran, to understand the Quran. This tradition of memorizing the Quran and being ma'anus, as we say in Arabic, having an intimate relationship with the Quran, carries on from the Ahlul Bayt to their companions, especially their close and senior companions. Once again, the culture of the Quran is prominent within the school of Ahlul Bayt and their followers. Yet, despite this reality, despite this fact about the status of the Ahlul Bayt, about the position and role of the Ahlul Bayt with regards to the Quran, we, unfortunately, as the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, have been accused of distorting the Quran, of believing that the Quran has not been preserved, of believing in that the Quran we believe to be the true Quran is not the Quran that is amongst us today. What is bayn al-daffatayn, what is between our hands, that everyone reads, is not truly the Quran that the Shia believe to be inspired and revealed to النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. This is a heavy allegation. It's very serious because it effectively can put us almost outside, at certain points, outside the fold of Islam, because Islam is to believe in everything Rasulullah brought, yes? And now there is an allegation that we do not believe that what is recited by all Muslims around the world is part of the religion. So someone, if this allegation is true, someone is outside the fold of Islam. It's either us or them. However, the truth could not be further from this accusation. Just like we said, the Ahlulbayt were the forbearing leaders in preserving the Quran. This has continued into their followers, and we have preserved the Quran, and we do believe the Quran we have today. The words of this book are the very words inspired and revealed to Rasulullah. However, there are some steps to take in proving this. For example, the idea of Mus'haf Ali, the Quran of Ali, is sometimes circulated that look, this is reason why you believe in another Quran. The idea of Mus'haf Fatima, salamullahi alayha, is once again used as a means of accusing the Shia of having a separate Quran. The manuscript of Ali, the manuscript of Fatima. And more important than these two misunderstandings, let's call them that, please recite a salawat and move forward if the sisters can, because they seem to be struggling. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. ثانيا على حب فاطمة. اللهم صل على وآل محمد. The second reason to why this question has become a problem and this discussion has become a problem is the presence of certain reports in our tradition that talk about tahrif, that talk about the distortion of the Holy Quran. They exist in our tradition. So our task tonight is firstly to give a brief history of the compilation of the Holy Quran, talk about the manuscript of Imam Ali or Mus'haf Ali, talk about Mus'haf Fatima, the manuscript of Fatima or the codex of Fatima, or the compilation of Fatima, peace be upon her, and address these reports of distortion of the Holy Quran. And inshallah, we'll try to do that in the time we have. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the barakah of Imam Hussein and the barakah of the Quran to enlighten our minds, to enlighten our hearts so we can carry on this important task with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The companions of Rasulullah both memorized the Quran and wrote the Quran down. Memorization was the primary form through which the Quran was preserved, because the early Arab society was not accustomed to writing, although civilizations around the Arabian Peninsula did write, the Roman civilization, the Persian civilization, even the Yemenis in Habasha. However, the community of people that Rasulullah was dealing with, they were not very much well versed with recitation. But in place of that, there were excellent memorizers. If you were to recite a line of poetry or multiple lines of poetry, they had the ability of memorizing these lines on the spot. And this is something that is not too far-fetched. Back in the days when I did not have a phone myself, I used to know every phone number of every family member, right? Even my distant relatives sometimes. But now that you have a phone and it's stored in the phone, you don't need to memorize that. Similarly, the early Arabs they could not write, or a small group of them wrote down the Quran, or generally wrote things down. Writing was not a prominent culture amongst them, so they relied a lot on memorizing, and their memories were pretty good. Nonetheless, the Quran has been preserved and was preserved through these two main methods, by both writing and memorization. Certain companions wrote the Quran down, the most prominent of them being Imam Ali alayhi salam. You have the other companion, Ibn Mas'ud, the other companion of Ubay ibn Ka'ab. these are some important names when it comes to the writing of the Quran. And Rasulullah, although others would also write the Quran down on primitive materials like leaves, parchments, whatever they could find, before, as you know, paper was not prevalent in those times. So they would write on whatever natural material was available to them. Others would also write the Quran down, maybe a verse here, a chapter of the Quran there, and they would keep it in their homes. But certain individuals like Imam Ali, like Ibn Mas'ud, like Ubay ibn Ka'ab, they were writing the Quran down under the supervision of Rasulullah. Okay? So Rasulullah had a strong interest in the compilation that was taking place with them. There is an interesting hadith mentioned for Imam Ali alayhi salam. He says, ما نزلت على رسول الله آية من القرآن إلا أقرأنيها وأملاها علي. There was not a verse of the Holy Quran that was revealed to the Holy Prophet except that he recited it to me and dictated these verses to me. فكتبتها بخطي سلام الله عليه. And I wrote down these verses with my own handwriting. علمني تأويلها وتفسيرها. And he taught me its inner meanings, its original meanings, its interpretation, the tafsir as we call it, وناسخها ومنسوخها, the abrogated and the abrogator, محكمها ومتشابهها وخاصها وعامها, the ambiguous verses and established verses. Some verses are very clear in their meaning, some verses are a little ambiguous and they require other verses to explain them. So Rasulullah would teach both the Quran in its letter and also teach the meaning of the Quran in the different way the verses could be understood to Imam Ali alayhi salam. وَدَعَ اللَّهُ أَن يُعْطِيَنِي فَهْمَهَا. And Rasulullah would pray that Imam Ali has and memorizes and keeps the understanding of the Holy Quran. وَحِفْظَهَا فَمَا نَسِيتُ آيَةً مِّن كِتَابِ اللَّهِ. I never forgot a verse of the Book of Allah. وَلَا عِلْمًا, or any other knowledge that Rasulullah would dictate to me while he was teaching me the religion and the Quran. وَكَتَبْتُهُ مُنْذ دَعَ اللَّهُ لِي بِمَا دَعَى. I did not forget anything since that dua Rasulullah made for me. This is a testimony to the intimacy that Imam Ali had with Rasulullah. Every verse that is sent down to Rasulullah, Imam Ali knows about it. He's one of the major Kuttab al-Wahi, as they call them, the writers and the scribes of the Holy Quran. And also his intimate relationship with the Quran itself. Imam Ali compiles this from the moment the Quran is descended upon the Holy Messenger in Mecca, throughout his journey to Medina, throughout all these 23 years. So as you can see, given the intimate relationship Rasulullah and Imam Ali had, this codex, as they call it, this copy of the verses of the Quran would be a very, very special copy. So Imam Ali, salawatullahi alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, presented, according to historical reports, presented this Quran that most likely was written down in the order of descent. You know, the Quran you and I read today is not in its historical order. It's not that, for example, Surah Baqarah was the second surah that was descended upon Rasulullah. No. The current order of the Quran we have, they put, of course, Surah Fatihatul Kitab, the opening chapter, but usually it's the larger chapters, the lengthier chapters, and then middle length chapters, and then Shura, and then finally the shortest of chapters. This is not how the Quran was actually descended. The verses did not come in this order. So it is very likely that the Quran Imam Ali was compiling was based on the order of descent, a historical, chronological descent of the Holy Quran. And because we know he was very close to Rasulullah, and Rasulullah was teaching him everything, what is that beautiful hadith that Imam Ali says, عَلَّمَنِي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ أَلْفَ بَابٍ مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ, that from Rasulullah taught me 1,000 doors of knowledge, and from each door another 1,000 opened. He was the special student of the Holy Prophet. So of course his Quran is going to include more information than just the verses. There were commentaries. Who was this verse sent down for? The occasion of revelation, as they call it, sabab al-nuzul. The story behind the verse, some explanations. There was commentary by Imam Ali on this. Like I said, most likely it was a chronological order. There was commentary on this writing compilation of the Quran. So it was a very useful Quran if you think about it. Imam Ali had all this knowledge and he had written it down in the Hashia, as we call in Arabic, on the footnotes as footnotes. And now, according to historical reports, after the passing of Rasulullah, he comes to present this Quran to the Muslim community. In some reports they say it took him some days, some time to compile this after the death of Rasulullah. It is mentioned. Nonetheless, it is also mentioned that he presented this Quran to the community. However, the community rejected this book. And we have to ask questions as to why they rejected this book. Didn't they say, Hasbuna kitab Allah, kitabullah? Did they not say that? That the book of Allah, the second Khalifa said that when Rasulullah asked for a pen and paper, correct? On that calamity of Thursday, on his deathbed, Rasulullah asked for pen and paper. Let me write you down something that you will not go astray after this. The second Khalifa said some bad things, which I'm not going to say. And then he said, Hasbuna kitabullah. The book of Allah is sufficient for us. We don't need this. So if the book of Allah, even if we go down by this logic, the book of Allah is sufficient, why are you not accepting this special copy of the Quran with all these explanations? We have to ask questions, right? Maybe in the explanations there are things that some people do not like. Maybe in the commentary and the footnotes there is information that is not in favor of the current political setup of the time. Questions to be asked. When you read history, as students of history, you don't just read it blindly, if you like. You don't just read it simply. You're like, wait, why did this happen? This book became known as the compilation or the codex of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Mushaf Ali. Okay? So is it a separate Quran? No. It's the same Quran. But it comes with explanation. It comes with commentary. It comes with footnotes. So the allegation that we have another Quran because we believe in Mushaf Ali is a false allegation, is a misunderstanding. It's the very Quran we have now with further explanation. What happens to this Quran? According to historical reports, Imam Ali says you'll never see this book again. And according to some other reports, some of the inheritances that each Imam would have would be items they inherited from their forefathers, right? So they would inherit things from Rasulullah, and they would also inherit things from Imam Ali. One of the things they would have inherited is most likely this Quran, this copy of the Quran. The other things, they would have inherited would have been the sword of Imam Ali. These, by the way, amongst the members of the Ahlulbayt, whoever inherited these items, they would be known as the Imam. One of the signs of Imamah would be they inherited these books, okay? And they inherited certain items that was exclusive to the Imam. If you look through history, whoever became the Imam also possessed these items. So, the answer to the first question, is Mushaf Ali another copy of the Quran which we believe to be different? No. But since we are here, let's talk about the compilation of the Quran. Okay, if they ignored the compilation of Imam Ali, what did they do? Firstly, we said that the companions did write, especially some senior companions like Ibn Mas'ud, Ubay ibn Ka'ab, and others, even Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, who was very determining in the city of Kufa against the movement of Imam Hussein, and also very determining in other political events. Nonetheless, he had his own copy of the Quran as well. These companions had their copies, but the official state-sponsored copy of the Quran, okay, first begins, according to historical reports, under the reign of the first Khalifa Abu Bakr. After the Battle of Yamama, after Rasulullah passes away, a group of people, they turn their backs on the religion. Why? Because someone from amongst them by the name of Sulaiman claims prophethood. He says, I'm the next prophet. So these naive people decide to follow him. And the Muslims then go to confront them. Whether these confrontations were needed or not, that's another separate discussion to have. Nonetheless, a war took place between the Muslims and these people who turned their back to the religion according to the teachings of this false prophet. A lot of, up to 70 it is recorded, memorizers of the Quran were killed in this battle. So the second Khalifa became worried and told Abu Bakr, the first Khalifa, look, if we are going to continue like this and in each battle we are going to lose a reciter or multiple reciters of the Holy Quran, by the time we're done fighting, they seem to like fighting a lot for some reason, by the time we're done fighting, we are going to lose a large number of the huffaz, of the memorizers of the Holy Quran. And then the Quran, given that it's primarily, we said the main mode of preservation of the Holy Quran was the memory of the people, okay? Then there was a threat that the Quran was going to be lost. Abu Bakr initially hesitates, he's like, you know, Rasulullah didn't do this, why should I do this? But then he's eventually convinced, okay, we'll do this. They assign a young man who was also known to be a scribe of the Quran by the name of Zayd ibn Thabit. Zayd ibn Thabit becomes the official person nominated to collect the Quran. By collecting the Quran, it does not mean he's doing anything complicated here, right? All he is doing is asking the people if they have written copies of the Quran to bring them so they are not lost, and will collect them and put them in the one place. Okay? So this is the first attempt by the state itself. We already said senior companions already were doing this. Okay? So don't think that, oh, wait, so you're telling me the first compilation of the Quran happens by the hands of Zayd ibn Thabit and Abu Bakr? No. Okay? Because also the way they compiled the Quran was a bit dubious. Okay? For example, they would accept a verse of the Quran if two people gave testimony for it. Two people came and said, hey, we heard Rasulullah recite this verse. They're like, oh, okay, this must be a part of the Quran. Okay? If someone wants to be really academic and critical, they were like, wait, so you're saying your Quran today, which was affected by that codex of Abu Bakr and Zayd ibn Thabit, was proven by the testimony of two people sometimes? Becomes problematic, right? So I'm telling you here because in these discussions against the, against the veracity of the Holy Quran, sometimes they bring this challenge. But the Quran, this is an official codex, yes, but other companions like Imam Ali, like Ibn Mas'ud were writing the Quran down anyways. So what Zayd ibn Thabit does is collect all these parchments, all these primitive materials, all these little small parts of the Quran that is spread out through the houses of the companions, yes, and puts it together in one place. It is kept with Abu Bakr, then it's given to Umar, and then the daughter of Umar, Hafsa, inherits this. So the first official, when I say official, what do I mean? A government, state-sponsored compilation, okay? Don't think that there weren't other compilations. I've stressed this multiple times because I don't want you to walk out being weakened in your belief in the authenticity of the Holy Quran. I'm teaching you the history in the correct way, inshallah. That's the first compilation, state-sponsored. The second happens at the time of Uthman, and this one is also an area where a lot of people pose questions and allegations against Muslims as a whole. What happened was, you know how we said some companions, senior companions like Ibn Mas'ud, Ubay ibn Ka'ab, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, they wrote the Quran down themselves. They ended up traveling to different parts of the Muslim world. Or their copies went to these parts of the world. Okay? And whether you like it or not, if we had multiple people right now taking transcripts of this lecture, although I am saying the same, I'm not, telling one person one thing and telling another person another thing, they might differ, even if they were to write this verbatim, word for word, there might be some slight differences because one person misheard, or one person heard the word differently, so on and so forth. It's very natural, yes? So these codexes, that can't be the plural, right? Codexes doesn't sound right. These compilations had some discrepancies amongst them. Very natural, it's a human process, okay? Sometimes in the way they pronounced it, because you know the Arabs had different dialects. Even today, you have different dialects, yes? So back then, they also had different dialects. So when these groups of Muslims from different cities, when they would go to war or expeditions together, and they would meet and they would recite the Quran, and they hear each other's recitations, sometimes they would differ. And they would say, hey, you're reciting it incorrectly. The other one would say, no, you're reciting it incorrectly. Because of these small discrepancies that sometimes existed. Majority of the Quran was the same. Please, don't go away thinking that we had multiple Qurans floating around. No, the handwriting was very primitive, and the companions that received this from Rasulullah also may have had some discrepancies. Very natural. It's a large collection of pages, right? You expect there some pages, some verses for a one letter to be misplaced by someone. So they had some small disputes amongst them whenever they would meet. For example, in Kufa, they really respected the codex of Ibn Mas'ud. In Basra, they would really respect the codex of Abi Musa al-Ash'ari. In Sham, if I'm not mistaken, they relied on the Mus'haf of Ubay ibn Ka'b. So when the government of the time, ruled by Uthman, saw the condition of the Muslims, right? And they saw that, look, there is some discrepancy in the way the Quran is being recited in some small areas. We need to do something about this. We need to standardize the Quran. So they took it upon themselves to make one standard copy of the Quran. So we are going to collect all the known codexes and compilations, all the ones that are respected by the senior companions, and we are going to use a rigorous procedure to ensure what is common amongst all of them. If there is a discrepancy and 4 of them have one iteration and 1 of them has a different iteration, of course they're going to accept the one that is common amongst the 4 compilations. Very simple process. Once again, the same individual that was used in the compilation of Abi Bakr, who was he? Zayd ibn Thabit. He was nominated to undertake this task. But Zayd ibn Thabit was a young man, and he was not the most senior companion during the time of Rasulullah. They realized, look, this is a serious, solid project, and it cannot be just done by a committee of multiple people led by a junior companion like Zayd. So, alhamdulillah, they had some, I will not comment, they decided to appoint someone else. Ubay ibn Ka'b. Ubay ibn Ka'b, yes, he was a senior companion. He had a senior companion in the sense of spending more time with Rasulullah, okay, and being older in general. So then they appointed him as the head of the committee, and the committee grew larger in number. What they did is they asked for all these compilations around the Muslim world. They compared and contrasted, they did all they had to do, and then they produced the Uthmanic Codex. Okay, Uthmanic, why? Because it was compiled in the time of Uthman. Uthman wasn't in the committee himself. Or it doesn't mean it was the Quran that Uthman had written down. Okay? Uthmanic because it happened during the time of the 3rd Khalifa, Uthman. So they collected all these compilations, they standardized the Quran, and then they dispatched copies of this to different parts of the Muslim world with a reciter. Because as you know, the Muslim world had now expanded. It wasn't just Arabs now. You had a lot of non-Arabs, you had Persians, and they were not familiar with the script of the Quran, or they were not familiar with Arabic, even if they were able to read the script. And the script was very primitive. Nowadays, when you open the Quran, there's harakat, there's dots, there's a diacritical marks, right? It's very easy to read the Quran. But the primitive text of the Quran was not like that. It did not have dots, it did not have fatha, dhamma, right? So you had to be an Arab to be able to read that. And don't be surprised, by the way, like, hey, how did they read this? How can you read something without dots? Even if I gave you a text in English, okay, and I took the dots away, and sometimes I even took some letters away, you'd still be able to make sense of what the sentence is. Haven't you seen that experiment they did? They would keep the first letter the same, the last letter the same, and they would disarrange the letters in between, and your brain still is able to read it because you're very familiar with the language. Okay, so an Arab who is well versed in the Arabic, standard Arabic of the time, the Fusha Arabic, they would comfortably read it. So they compiled the Quran, they standardized the Quran during the time of Uthman, and then they sent out a reciter, someone who can read the text, to each different important city. And then they collected all the other compilations and they destroyed them by burning it. Okay? Because they had this standardized copy based on these compilations, they wanted the discrepancies to go away, so they removed all these other compilations. One of these companions, Ibn Mas'ud, refrained. He caused an opposition to this. He's like, I don't agree with the burning of these codexes with other compilations. You can have your standardized Quran, no problem, but why do you want to burn my copy? Okay? And his copy ended up surviving for a bit longer. But most of the other copies, we know the copy of Imam Ali was also already taken away. Yes? These other copies of other companions ended up being destroyed in this process. But what remained was a combination of all these codexes. So don't think because they were destroyed, the Quran was destroyed. Once again, the Quran was not destroyed. They brought multiple copies together and they standardized the recitation of the Quran. They standardized the text of the Quran. So this is what happened during the time of Uthman. They call it Jama' Uthman, the compilation of Uthman. This is a basic history of the written compilation of the Holy Quran, which I believe is very important for you as a Muslim to know. Because maybe in university, maybe in school, maybe somewhere you have a discussion, right? And someone says your Quran is distorted, you guys burnt all the copies, and you're like, wait, we burnt the copies? You know, when you first hear this idea of burning the Quran, it sounds scary, threatening almost. But if you know the historical background to it, you won't have such fear. We talked about Mus'haf Imam Ali. We talked about the history of the compilation of the Quran. I want to talk about Mus'haf Fatima. Salamullahi alayha. Allahumma sallallahu. This is once again another reason for people to think that we have a different Quran. But Mus'haf Fatima, by the way, this accusation and misunderstanding was also present during the time of the Imams. And that's why, if I'm not mistaken, it's Imam al-Sadiq says that Mus'haf Fatima, the book of Fatima, does not include a single verse of the Holy Quran. So what does it include? You see how silly this objection and misconception is? A book that does not include a single verse of the Quran is used to say we have a different Quran. So what is in this book? It has three parts. The first part is some knowledge that Rasulullah would dictate to Imam Ali. Okay? So that's the first part. The second part is the will, the blessed will of Sayyidah Fatima. Salamullahi alayha. So the second part is the will of this blessed lady. And the third part, and the most interesting part, is that after Rasulullah passed away, an angel would descend upon Lady Fatima and would communicate certain information to her. Now, don't be alarmed. By the way, this is another reason why people think that we have a different Quran, because we say the angel descended upon Lady Fatima and he revealed information to her. And if you say that, that sounds like the same thing that happened to Rasulullah, yes? Rasulullah would have an angel descend upon him. But don't be alarmed. This is not revelation. This is what we call inspiration. Even the mother of Moses, received such inspiration from Allah to cast the baby in the river. This is mentioned in the Holy Quran. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَىٰ أَنِ اقْذِفِيهِ فِي التَّابُوتِ. And we أَوْحَيْنَا, we revealed to the mother of Musa to place Musa in a casket and let him be in the river and let him go in the river. And we have this, it's not the only example. Even in Sunni compilations of hadith, they say even Omar used to receive such inspirations, right? We have this. So this idea is not something that is foreign to both sides. They understand. It's called tahdith, being spoken to. So Sayyidah Fatima would be muhaddatha, someone who was spoken to by an angel. This angel would comfort her. It could have been Jibreel, we do not know, or at least I do not know. And he would communicate, try to console her after the death of Rasulullah. He would communicate what Rasulullah is, in what state he is right now in the heavens. He would also communicate the future of Sayyidah Fatima's generation. For example, what would happen to Imam Hassan, what would happen to Imam Hussein, what would happen to her progeny, what would happen to after, all these events in the future. So it's a very, very important book because it contains this special information, right? It would contain stories of previous prophets. And interestingly, Imam Ali is also the person who writes this down. So Lady Fatima is receiving this information and Imam Ali is writing this down. Okay? So he's once again a scribe for Sayyidah Fatima. If you want to think about the status of Lady Fatima, just think about this dynamic. Think about this event. Lady Fatima receives information from the heavens, not Quran, okay? Information from the heavens, and Imam Ali is writing it down, not the other way around. This should show you the status and the caliber and the level Sayyidah Fatima, peace be upon her, is, the level she is at. So Mus'haf Fatima, the book of Fatima, once again, has nothing to do with the Quran. This is the information entailed within it. Like I said, the reason people think that it is the Quran has to do with the descending of the angel, which we resolved and said that's not the biggest problem. This book, once again, is with the Ahlulbayt. One of the inheritances they keep is Mus'haf Fatima. If there was Mus'haf Imam Ali, another important book they keep is the book of Fatima, peace be upon her. When the Imam of our time comes, he will reveal these books, inshaAllah. Yeah? He will reveal, for example, Mus'haf Fatima. He will reveal, inshaAllah, Mus'haf Imam Ali. And other books, by the way. There are other books as well that I have not mentioned here. So the information that Imam of our time will present will sometimes be completely new to us. Because all this important information, unfortunately, because of the dhulm of zalimeen, the oppression that has been caused by certain figures in history, we were not able to have the access we wanted the Ahlulbayt. So we did not have access to this knowledge. So when this information is presented for the first time, when the Imam comes, we're like, oh wow, okay, interesting. This was the tafsir of this verse? Oh, okay, this is who he was sent down for? So some of our understandings of the Quran will be refreshed, it will be new. So that's why he says in some reports that when the Imam comes, he will come with a new book. Okay? Another reason why we're accused of having a different Quran. In some ahadith, he says he will come with a new book. In other ahadith, it says he will come with a new matter. When you put all of these ahadith together, you understand that the Imam is just presenting a forgotten understanding of the Quran. Because these people are the true explainers of the Quran. They understand the Quran the way it was supposed to be understood. You now open up a tafsir, you go on, I don't know, tafsir.app, fabulous website by the way. You go on that app and you see, it's in Arabic, so it's probably useless to most of you. But you go there and you want to open a tafsir, and there's 10 different explanations, all contradicting one another or having different interpretations. That goes to show our ignorance of the true meanings of the Holy Quran. Yes, it's a reality we face. That's why we need the Imam. So when the Imam comes and presents the true, accurate understanding, it will feel like a new book. It will feel like a new Quran. Okay? So if someone tells you, hey, you believe in the Imam will bring a different Quran, you guys are a bunch of kuffar, right? You don't believe in this Quran we have. You say, take it easy, brother. Slow down your horses. Let me explain to you. 1, 2, 3, and explain to him. And inshallah, he is guided. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Napkins? Tissue. A second salawat, please. We know you have to say the third one. Allah. Salam. In Farsi, we say "Tose nashe, bazi nashe." If you don't do something 3 times, it doesn't count. So that's the first part of our discussion. These compilations of Imam Ali, compilations of Fatima, peace be upon her, and this ahadith about that the Imam of our time will bring a new Quran. But more importantly and more seriously are the reports of tahrif. And let me scare you, okay? I like doing this. Let me scare you, give you a shock treatment. We have 1,000 reports that talk about tahrif. We got it out of the way? We're good? 1,000 reports in our tradition that talk about the distortion of the Holy Quran. Who had the honor of bringing all of these reports together? It was none other than Muhaddith and Nuri, not long ago, about 100 to 200 years ago. Who is Muhaddith Nuri? Do you know the book Mafatih al-Janan? Inshallah, most of you know. The author of Mafatih al-Janan is who? Sheikh Abbas Qumi, right? The teacher of Sheikh Abbas Qumi is Muhaddith Nuri. Okay? Now, a very pious man, a very devoted man, a devoted man to the reports of the Ahlulbayt, he collects whatever he finds, right, without doing too much of an assessment on the chain, without doing too much of an assessment whether this book is reliable, and brings 1,000 reports that hint, at least, at the very least, and sometimes they may be more than hinting, that the Quran has been distorted. This man really did not do much service in this department to our cause. And that's why mainstream ulama heavily criticized him, heavily rejected this book. Because why would you do that? Why would you compile, and I will explain the state of most of these reports and why the ulama criticized it. After that, right, a lot of the opponents of the Shia ideology would use this book and say, look, even your ulama believe in tahrif al-Quran. You've been doing taqiyya all this time. Look, we revealed you. You exposed yourself. It's over. KO. You did a self-knockout. But the truth could not be further from what is being displayed here. This book, 1,000 reports, okay? A good number of these reports are narrated from books whose authorship we do not even know about. We do not even know who the author is, right? Some random book has been passed down and we have no idea if the attribution of this book to that author is correct. Like, and I want you to pay attention here, the tafsir of Imam Hassan al-Askari, okay? They say this is the tafsir that Imam Hassan wrote down. We do not know that. We do not have strong evidence that Imam Hassan al-Askari wrote this tafsir down. But sometimes on social media you see people writing, you know, a hadith. It's from the tafsir of Imam Hassan al-Askari and you get scared. Wow, it's a tafsir of Imam Hassan, the 11th Imam. I should accept this, right? But we do not know whether this book belongs to Imam Hassan al-Askari, okay? A lot of these reports from 1,000 just go away. They are cast to the side, okay? Because we do not know the authorship of these books, the attribution to their authors. Another large chunk and segment of these reports go away because the people that are narrating them are ideologically deviated. They were known to be ghulat, extremists in their ideology. You know, people who thought the Ahlulbayt were God. You know, they still exist, by the way, in small minorities, and they've always been minorities. Or they believe, you know, they give the Ahlulbayt all these supernatural powers. Believing in the Ahlulbayt, the Imams being God or prophets, is really, you know, problematic. But you have the more innocent ones that you hear during like Karbala and the Maqatil, like Abul Fadl Abbas, like killed 5,000 people, you know, in the span of like, I don't know. That's not possible. Like, what do you mean he killed 5,000 people? That's not how life works, right? But these things happen because of these second category. It happens because of extreme love to the Ahlul Bayt. So they think like they have to exaggerate everything. They have to like exaggerate his height so like he reaches outside the roof of this. No, he was a normal human being. Like they think the Ahlul Bayt, you have to exaggerate everything. In one swing, he took out 10 people. Like, how is that possible? Al-Muhim, these are more innocent because you and I, when we listen, I'm like, okay, surely this is very poetic exaggeration. Of course, Abul Fadl Abbas was resembling of his father. Yeah, they were brave people. They were brave people. There's no doubt about that. But they are human beings at the end of the day. So a large chunk of these reports are discarded. Why? Because they come from people who thought like this. They thought that Ahlulbayt were God. They thought that Ahlulbayt were prophets. They were ideological deviants. That has no value. They may have, fabricated these reports. So what you're left with from 1,000 reports, when you do all of these, academic analysis, hadith analysis, you end up with about, if I'm not mistaken, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. It's 300 reports based on memory, so 2/3 of it goes out the window, okay? But 300 remaining is still a big number. But even the 300, although they may not have a problem in their attribution, in their sanad, in their chain of transmission, they are not talking about tahrif at all. A category of them, okay, is the Ahlul Bayt explaining the Quran. For example, Ya ayyuha rasul, the verse of Ghadir, O the messenger, balligh ma unzila ilayk, reveal what has been sent down to you. And then the Imam, as he is explaining this verse, right now, look how I'm explaining this, right? I read the verse and I explain a little bit. So the Imam would say, Ya ayyuha rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayk, fi haqqi aliyin, in the right of Ali, what was revealed in regards to Ali. They thought that that was the verse, whereas that's an explanation of the verse. Within the parentheses, the Imam is explaining the verse, and that happens quite often. So from these 300, a lot of them are just explaining the verse. But Muhaddith Nuri put this in this book saying, hey, look, clearly the Imam recited the Quran differently. Sometimes the hadith is talking about the distortion of the meanings of the Quran, not the distortion of the text of the Quran. Even Imam al-Hussein, peace be upon him, on Yawm Ashura, he told the army of Yazid, you have distorted the Quran. Yeah? You have distorted the Quran. What did he mean? He did not mean that you're reciting a different Quran. He means that you're implementing the Quran in the wrong way. You've distorted the meanings. These verses are about us, right? The verse of Ulul Amr, the verses about Imam Ali, the verses in Surah Al-Insan about the Ahlulbayt. But you are ignoring these meanings, and hence you are distorting their meanings. So sometimes these reports are about distortion of meaning, not distortion of the text. Another times, it's the recitation of the Ahlul Bayt. They exist, okay? A very, very small number of times, the Ahlul Bayt recited a particular verse in a different way. Okay? مثلا, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس. You are the best of nations that have been produced for the people. تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. You forbid the evil and you enjoin the good. In some ahadith it says كنتم خير أئمة. You are the best of imams, the best of leaders. Okay? There are some small discrepancies sometimes in that we have received authentic reports that the Ahlul Bayt may have recited this differently, but they are very small in number. So, from 1,000 reports that supposedly claim distortion of the text of the Quran, most of them go away. 99% of them go away. Yes, let's be honest. There is a small number of verses where the Ahlul Bayt recited it differently. And that's fine. That's fine. This is even our Sunni brothers that have different recitations. I have to do a separate lecture on recitations of the Quran. These are not different, once again, different Qurans, okay? It's different recitations of the Quran. It's not the same, okay? So I just want to put that out there. Inshallah, if there is a chance, we can talk about that as well. But, moral of the story, long story short, these 1,000 reports that are used against us for tahrif and distortion of the Quran have nothing to do with distortion of the text of the Quran. In fact, we are safe from this accusation, okay? We come out safe from this problem. But our Sunni brothers and sisters have ahadith that are sahih in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, okay? That talk about verses that existed during the time of Rasulullah, but the people no longer recite it, okay? The second Khalifa, Umar, says there was a verse about stoning. This is mentioned in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. That there was a verse about stoning that we used to practice and we used to recite it. And he mentions that I'm afraid people will forget this, that it was from the Holy Book. In another hadith, if I'm not mistaken, it's from Sahih Muslim. It's narrated from Aisha, where it talks about, my apologies, adult breastfeeding, okay? And says it was mentioned in the Quran. I'm not going to go into details of what that is. But it is mentioned that this was recited during the time of Rasulullah. There was amongst what was revealed in the Quran, 10 known breastfeedings make a marriage unlawful. Then it was abrogated to 5. Actually, that's a terrible translation. 10 known breastfeedings make 2 adults mahram to each other. That's the idea, by the way, right? You want to become mahram to someone else according to this. I know. According to this, I'm not going to go into the details. And then we're accused of distortion of the Quran. This is in Sahih Muslim, Hadith 1452. It's Sahih Muslim. Everything is supposed to be Sahih. And the other one is Sahih Bukhari 6830. Verily Allah sent the Prophet with the truth and revealed to him the book. We recited it and understood it. And the verse of stoning was revealed. We recited it and understood it and memorized it. The Messenger of Allah stoned to death, and so did we after him. I fear that after a long time has passed, someone will say, we do not find the verse of stoning in the book of Allah, and thus they will go astray by abandoning an obligation revealed by God. We don't believe this, okay? But you have a problem now in your books to explain how 2 important rulings, they're serious rulings, right? One makes you a mahram, makes 2 adults mahram somehow, and the other one is about stoning. They were apparently mentioned in the Quran, and they're not mentioned anymore. So if there is a challenge, you have to answer the challenge. Tell me, what do you do with these ahadith? Either Sahih Muslim is not Sahih, and Sahih Bukhari is not Sahih, or your Quran is distorted. Your Quran is not exactly how Rasulullah recited. Of course, there will be mental gymnastics to explain all of this. I'll tell you from now. You'll find some very sophisticated mental gymnastics to explain this, but the truth stares you right in the face. It is in your most authentic of books in hadith, and is not in your Quran. So, once again, subhanallah, they say this about the Zionists. They are guilty of everything they accuse you of. They say, they're using human shields. They are the ones using human shields. They say that Palestinians were raping women. They are the one raping women and abusing children. Everything they accuse you of, they are themselves guilty of. Sometimes when you go into these discussions of polemics, you find that the thing you're being accused of, they are guilty of it. By the way, when I say they, we're being very respectful here. Yeah, this is an academic discussion. We're not trying to demean or offend. But it's just an academic discussion at the end of the day. When we are under the attack in this way, it's only fair for us to respond in this way and be historically authentic and say, look, if you really think that's a problem, then I think you should clean your house first. Yeah? And then come and say, okay, your house looks like this. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So the Shia do not have a separate Quran. No. In fact, we take pride in the Ahlulbayt being responsible for preserving the Quran. But we have something that you guys don't have. We have something that you do not have. And yes, it is written. Yes, it is words. And these are the words of supplication by the Imams. Right? Now go find me something like that. Find me something like the supplications of Imam Zayn al-Abidin in Sahifa Sajjadiyah. Go find something like that. Go find the words of Imam Al-Hussein in Dua Arafah. Go find the words of Imam Ali in Dua Kumail. Go find the words of Imam Zain al-Abidin in Munajat Abi Hamza al-Thumali. Go, I dare you. You know, I said a few nights we don't appreciate what we have. We do not appreciate what we have. This rich tradition of supplications is very unique. You just have to go and look and see it does not exist. The way these beautiful individuals spoke to God is unique, is unmatched. You will not find it. They sometimes tap into emotions that you did not know existed. You are using sentences and ideas and meanings to speak to God they did not know was possible. Munajat Sha'baniya, wow. Wow. You feel things, you get a spiritual high, as if every dua, by the way, for a lack of better analogies, is a different kind. No, I'm not going to use the analogy. You know what analogy I was going to use, but I'm not going to use it. Every dua is a spiritual therapy. Hits different, takes you to a different spiritual high. Yes, we have different compilations. Yes, we have different books because we have different individuals, you see. We have Ali, we have Fatima, we have Imam Al-Hussein, the beautiful, beautiful Imam Al-Hussein. Of course, their words are going to be different. Of course, everything we have from them is going to be different. Of course, my connection to God will be completely different when I speak through the words that Imam Al-Hussein spoke with. When Imam Al-Sajjad is teaching me in every occasion how to speak to God, and in every occasion, please tonight, if you do one thing, now that your heart is firm about our understanding of the Quran, right? Go open Sahifa Sajjadiyya and just look at the table of contents. And just open anything random, any dua that you feel hits the heart. And just read the words for a bit. Read the translation. And tell me how Jane Austen, Shakespeare, Othello, how they compare. Just tell me. Right? And tell me how we could not possibly fall in love with God after reading these words. Dua Abi Hamza, my God. Wow. The nights of Qadr, I know we recite, this is not for me to mention that, but since we're here, we're talking about supplications. The nights of Qadr are very special nights. And we love Dua Jawshan, no problem. But please spend some time with Dua Abi Hamza Thumali, right? It's something that Ahlulbayt paid a lot of great attention to. And also during the month of Sha'ban, the Munajat of Sha'baniyya of Imam Ali. Most of the Ahlulbayt, if not all of them, read this. A dua that all of the Ahlulbayt have read is probably very important. And from the beautiful words that we have received are the words, the magical words of Ziyarat Ashura. Inni silmun liman salamakum wa harbun liman harabakum. I am at war with whoever is at war with you. I'm at peace with whoever is at peace with you. Aduwun liman aadakum wa waliyun liman walakum. These words set trajectory. These words set goals, set objectives, the way we have to head. Ziyarat Ashura was recited by our ulama daily sometimes, right? It has a special effect on the heart. So these nights, at least every night, make sure, even if you come to the center, you go to a center that you miss the Ziyarat Ashura, make sure you recite it yourself and renew your allegiance. Inni silmun liman salamakum ya Hussein. Ila yawm al-qiyamah. Until the day of judgment, my allegiance, my oath continues. And send that beautiful salam to the Imam. From the bottom of your heart. And let's send it together as we end tonight with showing our respect to Imam al-Hussein, showing our respect to Ali al-Akbar, to his children, to his companions. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم جميعا. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين. louder. السلام على الحسين.
صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى آل بيتك المظلومين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Tonight we remember the special debutee of Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam, Muslim bin Aqil. He was the cousin of Imam Al-Husayn. Muslim was tested with a great test, a test that needed knowledge, a test that needed endurance and patience. Because Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam sent him to Kufa to test Ahl al-Kufa to see if they were truthful or not. Because thousands of letters reached Imam Al-Husayn from the people of Kufa. Oh Imam, we are ready, we want to support you, come to us. So he sent Muslim alayhi salam to examine them. He told them, I have sent you my brother, my cousin, my trustworthy family member, Ubaydullah bin Ziyad. He sent a search party to find Muslim. He was afraid that Muslim would gather enough supporters and overthrow him from power. So he kept on searching for Muslim. So he came up with a plot. He sent one of his slaves to go to Muslim and told him, act as a lover of Ahlulbayt, gain their trust. Tell him, I have come from Damascus and I have money I want to give to Muslim alayhi salam. So he went to none other than Muslim ibn Awsaja. He met him and told him the story. I am here to give money to Muslim bin Aqil. Muslim bin Awsaja did not know he was an enemy, that he was a spy. So he took him to Muslim. Time and time again, eventually the spy figured out that he was staying with a man named Hani ibn Urwa. So he went to Ubaydullah and he told him where Muslim was. So Ubaydullah imprisoned Hani. When Muslim alayhi salam realized Hani was placed in jail, he said, we have to move. So he called his companions and he formed an army of 4,000 supporters. He led them to the castle of Ubaydullah bin Ziyad. Ubaydullah only had 50 men with him at the time. He was greatly outnumbered. Muslim came to the castle and he started to tell the followers of Muslim bin Aqil. Ubaydullah started to tell the followers of Muslim bin Aqil, O people of Kufa, beware the army of Shia. Meaning what? Meaning if the army comes to fight you, they will surely kill you. A lot of these supporters got scared and left Muslim. Some of them, their brothers, their cousins, their family members would come to them and say, "Don't be a supporter of Muslim." The wife would come to her husband and say, "Someone else can support Muslim. I don't want to lose you." So the supporters turned to 300 and eventually to 30. Muslim went to pray Salatul Maghrib. By the time he's done, he leaves the masjid. And who was with Muslim? Muslim alayhi salam was alone. He was completely abandoned. Muslim was wanted. People were searching for him. He has no family members in Kufa. He was walking the streets of Kufa alone. He walked until he reached the house of a lady, a pure lady named Taw'a. Taw'a was waiting for her son Bilal. Muslim said salam and she replied, "Wa alaykum as-salam." Muslim alayhi salam shyly asked, "Can you get me a bit of water?" She offered him water. She went back to the house to return the cup. She comes back outside and Muslim is sitting at the entrance of the house. She tells him, "Ya Abdullah, did you not drink? Ya Abdullah, idhab ila ahlik." But Muslim has no family in Kufa. His family members are very far away. She told him, "Go to your family members." He kept silent, alayhi salam. "Go to your family members. It's not proper for you to sit in front of my house. And I do not permit you to sit here. Go back to your family." At this moment, Muslim broke his silence. "Ya amat Allah, ya mali fi hadha al-masir, ahlun wala ashira, ana muslim ibn Aqil, كذبوني هؤلاء القوم." When she knew he was Muslim, she welcomed him. She let him inside the house and into one of the chambers. She offered him food, but Muslim refused. He spent the night in worship. However, during that time, her son Bilal came. He saw her going in and out of the chamber. He said, "Mother, do we have anyone in our house?" Taw'a would not respond, but he insisted on knowing. She made him swear that he will not tell anyone about Muslim. She said, "Muslim bin Aqil is in our house." At morning time, what did this mal'oon do? He went to Ubaydullah bin Ziyad. He informed him that Muslim was at his house. Muslim alayhi salam prayed Salatul Subh and he was supplicating. Suddenly Muslim hears the sound of horses pounding the ground. He realizes that the enemy is coming. He ends his dua. He puts on his armor and he comes to Taw'a. He says, "Taw'a, you have gained Rasulullah's intercession." And last night I saw my uncle Ali in my dream, alayhi salam, and he told me that tomorrow he will be with me, meaning that this was Muslim's last day, this was Muslim's day of his shahada. Ya nafsu khruji ila al-maut alladhi laysa lahu min mahiz. Muslim was fighting the army. The leader of the army sent Ubaydullah a message asking for more troops. Imagine, there was one man versus all these troops. More troops came to fight Muslim. The enemies went to the rooftops. They were stoning Muslim. They were throwing burning wreaths at Muslim. And so he asked them, مَا لَكُمْ تَرْمُونَنِي بالحجارة كما ترمى الكفار وأنا من أهل بيت الأنبياء الأبرار لا ترعون رسول الله في عترته. He continued to fight until he was weakened. The enemies began shooting Muslim with arrows. He kept fighting alayhi salam. He's told by Muhammad ibn al-Ash'ath, Muslim, do not kill yourself. I grant you amnesty. Muslim replied, well, I give myself in while I have the power to fight. I swear by Allah, I will never do so. And Muslim alayhi salam kept fighting, but he was getting weaker and weaker. So he rested against the wall. A person came from behind Muslim and he stabs Muslim. Muslim falls. فتكاثروا عليه وانتزعوا سيفا وأخذوه أسيرا. فعند ذلك دمعت عينا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. At that moment, Muslim's eyes began tearing up. Abdullah ibn Abbas says, if someone was seeking what you were seeking, Ya Muslim, and whatever happened to you happens to him, he would not cry. Muslim tells him, Wallahi inni ma li nafsi baki ولكن أبكي لأهل المكملين إلهي أبكي الحسين وآل الحسين. Because it was Muslim who told Imam Hussein, come ya Aba Abdullah, I am crying for Hussein and the family. وأن الذي يوصل بها الحين لأرض المدينة ويخبر حسين مسلم وحيد ولا ما له معين ودارت عليه الكون صوبين. They brought Muslim to the castle. He was thirsty and wanted to drink. One of the enemies tells him, you will not drink until you drink the boiling water of Jahannam. But another person had some mercy in his heart, and they brought him water. When he was about to drink, alayhi salam, blood from him fell into the water. They exchanged it for a new water. Blood fell again, and the third time he was about to drink, Muslim's tooth weakened and fell into the water. He understood he is not supposed to drink, and he must die thirsty like his master in Karbala. Before being killed, he prays 2 rak'ahs. When he was done, he turned to Medina. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ya ibn Rasulillah. They beheaded and killed Muslim. They threw his body off the roof. They killed Hani and began dragging the bodies in the streets of Kufa. When Imam Hussein alayhi salam received the news of Muslim, he cried bitterly. He was devastated alayhi salam. رحمك الله يا مسلم لقد وفيت بعهدك ولقيت ربك. Imam Hussein alayhi salam had the daughter of Muslim with him, Hamida. He wanted to comfort Hamida, so Imam Hussein began walking beside the children one after the other until he reached Hamida. When he sat down with Hamida, he began patting her head. فقالت له يا عما ما رأيتك قبل هذا اليوم تفعل بي مثل هذا أظن أنه قد استشهد والدي مسلم. قال لها بني عظم الله لك الأجر بأبوك أنا أبوك وبناتي إخواتك. فصاحت ونادت وابتا ومسلما. Muslim has been killed, but I am your father from now on. من إجت أدعمها حميدة قعدت توين ونا شديدة تقل يا عمي أبويا أريده أشوف صفرته صارت بعيدة يقلها يتيمة صرتي يتيمة صرتي يا حميدة. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا على محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم إنا ندعوك بأحب الخلق إليك محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين والتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. عجل فرج صاحب العصر والزمان. O Allah, we ask you to hasten the reappearance of Sahib al-Zaman. Make us from his sincere followers and supporters. Forgive our sins, heal our sick, heal all sick mu'mineen and mu'minat. Ya Allah, protect the Imam of the time and protect all the mu'mineen and mu'minat. Our scholars, protect them from the enemies. Ya Allah, bless the souls of all our past ones and our martyrs. Grant us the privilege of serving Ahlulbayt. Grant us their visitation in this dunya and their shafa in the akhirah. Ya Allah, keep us steadfast on the religion of Islam jami'an. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلبي على دينك. Please recite Surah Al-Fatiha after a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. We're going to have a quick latmiya. If the brothers can get up. And cut the light, please. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.